Greetings. Greetings, everyone. This is Dr. Ray Lindley. I'm the Executive Director for Array Global Accreditation, and it is really exciting to be with you all again and present what we're going to have for you today. It's been an especially busy time for us because of several things, and one of the things Dr. Jake's going to tell you about in just a moment. But we're excited to be here with you and to introduce our guest speaker, workshop coordinator today, and we'll be able to do that. Before we do, I want to also, I don't know if he's going to say anything, but Dr. Mike Poe is with us. Dr. Mike is one of our associate directors and is responsible for the workshop, bringing the workshop to us today. And of course, you all know Dr. Jacob Frankum. Jake is the associate executive director for Array Global, and he and I work together very closely for the activities and work that we do. So Dr. Jake, I think you have a few announcements, and then we'll start our workshop.
Yeah, welcome. It's great to be with you on this Saturday morning where I'm at, Saturday evening where many of you are at, and even for some Sunday morning. So welcome. I'm excited about continuing this discussion and this topic of differentiation in the classroom. Dr. Ray and I presented about that last month. And as we told you, we have a special guest today that Dr. Ray will introduce here in a few minutes. And we'll continue that discussion about differentiation because we know how important it is. So a few different announcements. The first one that I'm kind of excited about telling you about is our writing contest that finished at the very beginning of this month of November 1st. We had over 800 entries. And so our judges have been busy going through all those wonderful writing entries. And I know many of your students submitted those pieces of work. And so we've just been really impressed with a lot of the work that has come through. The students had to write about courage. That was our theme for this year. And we were excited to hear about all the things that they have learned about and that they have witnessed or even participated in. So we're very excited about that. I wanted to tell you about two exciting things that we have going on right now. The first one is our next academic contest. It's the Making Melodies Music Contest. So students can produce something, record something that they have, and present that to us, and we will review that. It can be an instrument or it could be singing. And I'll post here in the chat in a minute information and the link for that too. It's always on our website. Please get in and look at it. The other exciting thing that we have is what we call Me and My Community. And this is where it goes on the entire year, where students do service. They do 20 hours of community service during the course of the school year. And then at the end of that school year, if they've done their 20 hours, they get a certificate from us. And then we do an awards assembly for them to recognize their service, because we want them to give back to their community. One of the indicators that we have is teaching students about character and helping them learn about the virtues that are important in any community and society to survive. And so being involved, showing empathy, showing service, that's just so important for us and for our students to be aware of. So we're excited about that. I also wanted to take a second and just talk about some of the services that we provide. Our flagship service that we provide is accreditation. And we welcome any school to join us or even talk to us about how we can help you improve. And we always say that accreditation is not just to get a certificate, but it's an improvement process that we want to help you every step of the way. And we want to work with you every year. We don't want you just to say, oh, you're accredited for 5 years, you're done, but we want to be a partner with you in your improvement effort so you can provide the best education possible for your students. The other is certification. This is if you have a specific program in your school that you want to have evaluated, help improve, and you want it to be recognized. Please look at that. We'd be happy to talk to you more about that too. We have great consultants who can help you out in any phase that your school may be in, and with any kind of topic. We have professional development services. You've probably seen on our social media that we provide, that we have a partner who can help your teachers become, or help you become certified in the United States if you're interested. If you're interested also, you can follow our closed Facebook group page that Dr. Mike Poe runs. A lot of great questions there that are posted, a lot of good information, and just a great way to collaborate with an awesome professional like Dr. Mike, and then also with professionals like you all over the world. We have an awards and recognition program. If you have an exceptional student that you want to be recognized, we highlight a student every single month. We do that on social media. We send them a certificate. We wish we could go and visit the school and make it even more special. We also have a teacher and principal award that's opening up starting in January 1st, and we encourage you to be part of that too. I already talked about academic competitions. Another cool thing that we have is the sister school program. If you want your school to partner with a school in the United States to communicate with, maybe even go and visit, please let us know. It's an awesome program. We've had a lot of schools show interest in it, and we have schools that are planning a trip to come and visit their sister school in the United States. So with that, Dr. Ray, I think those are all the main announcements that we have. I'm going to post quickly in the chat about our 2024 Making Melodies music program. And if people have questions about any of these things, please email us. Again, we're here to help you.
Thanks, Dr. Jake. Well, it's been an exciting time since our workshop last month because as Dr. Jake has just mentioned, if you weren't here, we did a whole workshop on differentiation and we barely scratched the surface. By that means we just barely got into the topic. So we've invited a special presenter today who has prepared a wonderful presentation that goes into the whole area of differentiation and how we can work with classrooms full of students and yet have each student try to find out what each student needs. So Mrs. Dena Scott is our presenter today. She's actually in Spokane, Washington, which those of you who know geography of the United States at all, it's in the northeast corner of the state of Washington, which is the state closest to the Pacific Ocean on one side, just above Oregon, which is a better state because I'm from Oregon. But anyway, Dena, it's really wonderful to have you with us today. You've taught in several grades, and currently I understand that you're teaching specifically in grades 1 and 2. However, I think as this workshop progresses, you will note that most everything she talks about is not grade specific. It's something that all teachers can do with every grade level student, which you have. So, Ms. Dena, thank you so much for being with us today. And we'll save time for questions at the end. But if you have something that's burning and you think it needs to be answered right away, put it in the chat room, and Dr. Jake and I will try to help out to get those questions to our presenters. So Dena, the show's yours.
Well, thank you so much. I've been super excited about today, and yeah, you're right. I have just an awful lot of experience in education. Part of it is because I'm at the tail end. I'm old, so that always helps. But I have taught from kindergarten through 8th grade in the classroom, and then also for Dr. Mike Poe for 14 years at NNU at college, teaching administrators and people getting masters in curriculum and instruction, and then for the doctoral program. And so just have a lot of friends in education around the country, and differentiation is kind of the hot topic right now. And so I hope to touch on a little bit. I'm hoping all of you have been teaching, you're in the field, and I'm sure that you've had opportunities to use some of the strategies. My big hope today is that you just come away with a gem or two you might be able to use in your classroom, and in a way that you might be able to reach each individual student. And I'll try to hit on kind of what's going on globally as well as locally. So thanks for that. Let me go ahead and open this up all the way. How's that? Is it looking good? Okay. So we're going to talk about differentiation. Differentiation comes in 4 strands, really. And the majority of what we'll focus on today is the differentiation in the learning environment. And it's kind of the path less known. And I hope that we'll show you some things going on that are exciting and fun to do, as well as just very effective. So let's click here. Okay. So differentiated instruction is a really popular topic right now, and it's broad. And you really can't look at education anywhere in the United States today or on the globe that we're not talking about how do we reach each student. And the learning environment is one type of differentiation, as they would have told you last week. You have content and process, products, and then learning environment. So you have 4 strands of differentiation. But today we're going to focus on one strand. Predominantly, you'll get a little bit into the process, which is the activities, but more what's going on within that learning environment. It's really, it's kind of a springboard into differentiation. If you've taught in a classroom anywhere, one of the big concerns is, how do I get the rigor and the content in and meet the needs of students at a diverse level? And it's an ongoing challenge, and I hope I address that well today. So first of all, I know the students come to our classrooms with variety of skills. They have different levels of training, they have different levels of growth, they have different knowledge levels, they have different language skills, and then we would talk about multiple intelligence, different ways that they learn. So one thing that's really affecting education right now is that as we take a look at kind of older practices, we realize that the older methods, they were suitable for a previous time. But today's generation needs methods that suits its time. And I'm quoting a Professor Taha that's at the Zayed University. And she says, today's generation needs methods that suits its time, its tools, its way of thinking, and its dreams. Our own methods should not be imposed on them. Even if we're convinced those methods are useful, we don't prepare students for the present only, but for what they will need in 20 years. So if preparing teachers and students is not futuristic and flexible and creative, we're going to be stuck in this orbit of memorizing and recollection, which doesn't work in our fast-paced environment today. So one thing we don't like to talk about, but has definitely been an impact, is COVID. And it changed the way we do things in school, and it changed the demands of students and parents. So if you have taught post-COVID, you know intimately the classroom has changed. Some of us have a 4 grade level span in who we're teaching, and the reason was schools closed. Some students went home. Some students joined us online. Some students tuned out. During that time, I was the reading specialist for a school district in Washington, and my job was to find and engage 234 students who went away and didn't come back online, and to try to get them back engaged with the virtual part of school and get their devices up. And it was tricky. And then many students then joined us the next year in hybrid education. We spent some time at school, we spent some time at home, but the truth is, some of our students went home and didn't return. Some of our students went home and are starting to come back into the classroom, but some have been months or years of inactivity. So it's not unusual in our school district, in our state, in our country, to have a student sitting in high school that's 4 years behind, that's 3 years behind, that's 2 years behind, because they simply kind of tuned out of the instruction. So some students, if they had parents who were really involved, they were able to kind of keep up. They were able to tune in. Some of the kids that were a little more self-motivated. But the truth is that students of poverty, students that have parents that were working, have significant gaps in their learning right now. They're behind. And one of the things that we talk about globally is that the anxiety of our students today. So on top of that, the students that we have in our classroom, we have students who are anxious. They're struggling with social emotional learning gaps where they didn't have the interaction of peers. Some students still struggle with the aftermath of health effects. And so more than ever, differentiation is important in meeting the needs of those struggling students. And if you have taught pre and post COVID, you know that teaching's changed. It's changed significantly, and the students we have have a host of needs like never before. So the old methods aren't really suitable for our time. If our goal is to stand up and lecture and have students read the material, and then we do audio visual presentations, the students are going to retain about, if you incorporate all three of those aspects, they're going to retain about 35% of what you've taught. But in differentiation, we can move that to where students are retaining 75 to 90% of what they're learning. And also at the same time, closing the learning gap. And that's important because the students who may be behind, there has to be a way to help them close that learning gap and acquire those grade level skills. So in differentiated instruction, Dr. Carol Tomlinson, she says it's an instructional model that provides guidance for teachers in addressing student differences in readiness, interest, and learning profile with the goal of maximizing the capacity of each learner. And these, of course, are those 4 strands we talked about. And I'm going to focus on this 4th strand, which is our learning environment, which is changing up the context of learning a little bit. The learning effectiveness is greater and knowledge is retained. So the strengths of differentiated learning that you would have talked about previously is it addresses those multiple learning styles. You have that sustained focus on key concepts. It's a more organic method of providing inclusion for our students. And in America, all of our special ed students are in the classroom, regardless of the level of disability. And so we provide for all of our students inclusively when we do the differentiated learning. And it's scaffolded so that students can be supported or enriched. So if you have students that are below grade level, you can help them to meet those grade level standards, but you can also enrich. And I have a strand of students right now that I'm doing enrichment activities for because they are excelling in that area and they need more than what I'm providing. But I have a way to do it that's not so taxing. And then it increases student engagement. We scaffold, and then it's increased opportunities to develop those interpersonal skills. And when employers in the world have been interviewed and surveyed, they say the number one skills their future employees need is this interpersonal relational skills, that more than anything in the world, they need to be able to collaborate and work with and have those interpersonal skills to be able to be part of a dynamic team. So I'm just going to take a second and have you type in the chat. Whoops. Let's see, we went backwards here. Okay. If you can type in the chat, which methods of differentiation have you tried in your classroom? And if you see there's one is the content, changing up what's taught, the process, changing up how it's taught. 3 is assessment, changing up how it's assessed. Or 4, in your learning environments, changing up the context. Which of those have you personally tried that are viewers listening right now? Oh yeah, see, there's a lot of variety.
That's amazing how many different comments that we have about
Mhm.
different types of differentiation. That's amazing. Yeah, that's just great.
Yes.
Maybe it's because Dr. Ray and I did such a good job last month. Don't you think,
Absolutely.
Dr. Ray?
Yeah, absolutely. This kind of lets us know that these strategies aren't new to you, and you're familiar with quite a bit. And so hopefully, like I said, you'll be able to come away with a gem or two from here. That's always my goal in PD, is to come away with something, either a way that says, gosh, what I'm doing, it is giving me a pat on the back, yes, you're doing the right thing, or gives me something else I can try that kind of works out some of the kinks in what I'm doing. So we have a broad range of experience here, and that would go along with, whoops, let's see if I can, there we go. So according to a report by the Fordham Institute, 95% of teachers and 100% of administrators agreed that differentiating is an important instructional strategy. And that's what we're seeing in the chat here, is we know it's important. We know we need to be doing it, and it's a lot of work. So we have a broad range of experience out there, and as well. And the differentiation is so important, but it is a lot. If you're an administrator out there, know when you're asking your teachers to do this, that's a lot of work. And the classroom teachers who are already maxed out and overwhelmed, to say to a teacher, on top of all the paperwork, on top of all these meetings, and your IEPs and your expectations and your professional development, I also want you to develop lessons to help your low performers and your high performers, and then work for each individual student. It's a lot. And some educators say too much. So I hope, if nothing else today, we break this down into bite-sized pieces. So if you're doing it well, you can help other teachers who are struggling. And then hopefully you'll get a little gem or two to take with you. So one thing we know is that if we don't differentiate, no one's going to learn anything except that little swath of kids that are in the middle. So we all look at a standardized testing, the bell-shaped curve. And if we don't differentiate, the only kids who are learning is just that band in the middle, which I'm sure you guys talked about last month. So I'm just suggesting a manageable means of doing that. So you're familiar with Robert Frost's quote, 2 roads diverged in the woods, and I took the one less traveled, and that made all the difference. I also tend to be a pragmatist. So for me, I have to find things that work. And so differentiation of the learning environment was kind of the strand where I waded in, because it was something I hadn't really done a lot of. And my experience working with Dr. Poe at the university was actually helpful in this, because there were students that, at the time, we had students who would be online also, that would be in China and would be in the USSR at the time, or would be in countries all over the world that were in our class. So you had them online. Then we had a variety of people. So the class that I taught for him every year came together. You had people getting a master's in curriculum and instruction, and people getting a master's in school administration, and you had people who were going to get doctorates in special education. So you had just this wide variety of people coming in, and our learning environment had to change, because desks where they're all facing forward and listening to me do a lecture on behavior wasn't going to cut it. And so that was kind of where I first waded in. But in differentiating in the learning environment, you want all students to participate in respectful work. And it's not teacher labor intensive. That's the one thing that that I hope you come away with today, as at least a manageable way to put a handle on this. And then teacher and students, you work together to ensure this continual engagement and challenge. And the one thing that is really, it's fun and then sometimes challenging is the atmosphere is super energetic. It's people are engaged, they're talking, they're excited, and it's more like real world work environments. But if you taught years ago when all the students faced you and you were the only one talking, it takes a little bit to get used to, huh? All you guys who are already doing that, you know that. So the differentiation in the learning environment focuses on two aspects. One is the flexible seating, where the students are choosing the location they'll be successful. And then the second aspect, which is flexible grouping. So we use a workshop model, and that's what we see more in our country right now is this workshop model that I'll touch on that takes the flexible grouping and the flexible seating, and it just provides an arena where all the students are being super successful. So I want to talk to you about the 5 benefits of flexible seating. So one of the things I was saying is that I'll be showing you some photos that are in our school and in our district. This isn't one of them though. But the number one benefit of flexible seating is choice. And the research shows that giving students choices about their physical classroom space teaches them higher order thinking skills. Kayla Deltzer, she's an author of a 2015 her article that's kind of gone viral here is why the 21st century classroom may remind you of a Starbucks. And she follows that up in another report through Edutopia. But she says what they found is students feel empowered by having some degree of choice and control over their environment. And flexible seating allows students to choose where they work and with whom. And it also allows them to change their location and the positions. So outside the windows of our classroom, really we're all in dynamic, fast-paced, ever-changing world that's full of choices. So how can we expect our students to solve problems and make choices independently if we're solving their problems and making their choices for them, is what she goes on to say. So the second benefit of flexible seating is the physical health. So Mahar et al. Found that simple in-class activities can boost performance. Studies suggest that children who participated in short bouts of physical activity within the classroom have more on-task behavior too. And of course, we do that oftentimes with things like brain breaks, but flexible seating will allow you the movement that to accomplish this. Because what we know is children need to move, and flexible seating allows them to wobble or bounce or lean or stand. All of that increases the oxygen flow to the brain and the blood flow and core strength. And in turn, this burns more calories and increases their metabolism. And it helps young minds stay more alert and focused. So where in the United States, your students that are that have behavior problems, that have special education needs, that have disabilities, they're in the classroom. They're all in the classroom. And it helps to make the learning environment very effective and focused and reach all the students. But it's also no surprise that physical activity is linked to higher academic performance, better health, and improved behavior. So the third benefit of flexible seating is this real world applications. And in our, if you look in some of our tech environments, you look at a Google Office, you look at a Starbucks, you look at Microsoft, they've all got this more flexible seating for their workers, and it's becoming more of a application in businesses. Even cubicles, as you can see here, don't look like cubicles anymore. So when preparing the kids for the real world, we want students' learning environment to reflect the environment of the real world, says Manuel Herrera, and he's in Afrin School District, and he thinks flexible seating is how all schools will look in the future. The flex seating sharpens those higher order thinking skills and like problem solving and conflict resolution. And it says, he goes on to say, after all, taking turns requires patience. These workplaces reflect new trends in our industries. The fourth benefit of flexible seating is collaboration and connectivity. So the students we share our classrooms with, they don't know life without that constant connectivity. These children were born into an age of Wi-Fi and a global audience, and our classroom environments have to be conducive to open up that collaboration and the communication and creativity, along with critical thinking. And it can't be done when kids are sitting in rows of desks all day long. The research goes on to say relationships first, everything else second. The overarching message here is that students will learn more, love school, and create lifelong friendships in classrooms and schools where these approaches are the norms. And that's what was happening in the university setting. Is the students were going through in models called cohorts, where you're going through with a group of people that you're going through all of your college experience with. So you're forming those long-term interpersonal relationships, but you're also having to work on collaboration and communication, creativity, and your critical skills as you work together. And that's the environment that prepares people for the future that we've entered. The fifth benefit of flexible seating is this commitment to learning. And it's really interesting to see, and I'll show you some pictures of what's going on in classrooms just right in our building. But in 2012, there was a study from the University of Minnesota, and it found that students participated 48% more in discussions in a classroom with a collaborative group seating versus lecture style seating. And it also improved their performance. So they found that you could literally improve your instruction 50% just by taking the desks and instead of pointing them forward, putting them together and grouping. That's a pretty significant effect just for one change. But I'm going to go on and say you can make other changes that are going to raise that into the 90th percentile of improved education performance. So Kelly Ulmer from Littleton Public Schools in Colorado, she's just recently switched to flexible seating, and she says creating more student control and less teacher control has improved her student engagement. She's witnessed a change in their commitment to learning and behavior by making the room ours instead of mine. The students have a sense of ownership, and her students choose where they want to sit. There's a variety of high, medium, low seating where kids move, and the furniture is based on the needs. But wherever they choose to sit, it has to help them be their best learners. And that's something that becomes the classroom mantra or conversation, is you're saying to them, you need to sit where you're going to be most successful. We talk about that a lot. I have 6-year-olds that will come up to me and say to me, Mrs. Scott, this is the truth. I'll say it just like this. I need an alternate location. I am not being successful with this student today. So they start learning at a real early age. They can learn to monitor their own needs as a learner. So we'll dive into what does it look like, first steps, and then give you an opportunity again to weigh in.
Dena, can I interrupt a second? There was a comment here, and I think it's an important comment to address. In this particular situation, I think the continent of Africa was used. Well, with the issues that we have, how can this work? And then I read Dr. Poe's responses about sometimes it's the adults who have problems with something that's a little bit different, but the students adapt much more quickly. Is there really any reason why, no matter what the expectation is or the history is of seating, and because you've been talking a lot about seating, does that matter as much as the fact that we have to figure out what makes the students feel comfortable? That's kind of my question, which is leading off of the question from somebody from Africa.
Yeah, it's really interesting because in I haven't shared with you, but my husband's ministry is a pastor. And one of the strands of our ministry is we have 8 churches in Kenya and an orphanage. And so we go down, him and I trade off. So we get down there twice a year. He goes once and then I go once. And when we're there, we always do instruction. And I will say the first time I had the students push the desks and the chairs to the side of the room and we sat on the floor to learn, it took a little bit of planning and management, but if I should have, that's what I should have brought pictures of, is the kids who are working together in a group and some of the things they came together to create. But it can be done, and we have several of our churches in Africa that have dirt floors. They're dirt floors, and there's just it's almost just a skeletal tin frame over them, and we've been able to. It really, if you'll just stick with me for a minute and just try out this thinking for, I think you'll find some ways you can do that. Let's see if I address that for you. So in the first steps, the first thing I want you to think about is like a day like today, but how many times have you sat in a professional development and you're sitting some more, and you're listening closely, and you're sitting some more, and you're getting tired and restless. You're taking notes, but you're sitting there and you are tired and you are trying hard to engage. But by the end of the day, you just don't have any energy and you're sitting some more. Well, we do that to our students. I did that to my students 180 days a year. And if you can change just one aspect of your learning environment, the seating is going to make the biggest change in how that student feels sitting 6.5 hours a day. And it's super easy to do even in a small environment. So let's show you, let me walk you through what does it look like to implement into your classroom, into your space. So the first thing is that when you do this, it's not a new way of teaching. You really do this in your chairs already. So just look through this. Normally we get up there, we teach a lesson. Maybe it's, multiplication with regrouping. Maybe you're teaching author's point of view, but we get up and we instruct our students. Then we hand them out papers at their desk and we give them a big block of time to practice independently, to solve these problems, to answer these questions, to read that text. We know from research that at the end of that lesson, we should bring them back. You hear words like exit tickets. You give them an exit ticket, some way to summarize or encapsulate their learning to make it more effective. And then you go on to the next lesson or the next group of kids. So this workshop model that we use in teaching, you still use, but in flexible seating, it just looks a little differently. So you're in flexible seating, I recommend that you're using this workshop model. The students during this independent time, they're released to work in an alternate location or with alternate seating. And we'll go over some of that, what that might look like, but it's a way to keep their brain and their bodies moving while they're learning. So in this workshop models, teachers facilitate the learning by structuring the learning tasks. You create the materials for the students, or this one is pretty easy. So think about your math instruction. Most of our curriculum in math and in our language arts, reading, writing, the curriculum is already written that provides us this grade level strand. So the whole group instruction. But then you also get components that'll say like reteach. Reteach is materials that are meant to provide a little bit extra concrete support for your students who aren't achieving. Or you have an enrichment packet that lets them take and problem solve with that strand a little different. So it's the same way with with flexible seating. So your instruction starts whole group, and it has this focused mini lesson that lasts about 10-ish minutes. And you take the concept that's being taught and you focus on the big idea. Because as you know, we've talked about in education, essential standards. You hear this all the time. Teach your essential standards. Teach this big idea, the must know. Now the new term is called boulders, rocks, and butterflies. What are the big boulders these kids need to know? The rocks that kind of provide the foundation, or the butterflies that you don't want to spend a whole lot of time on. So you don't necessarily want to spend a whole lot of time on something that is going to spiral back and be covered more extensively in the next grade. But you do want to focus on the big ideas. Like for my group of kids right now, the big boulder is regrouping within in mathematics, regrouping within tens and hundreds. And so I want to spend the time letting the kids practice and focus on that. So this is an actual this is a classroom in our school. And this was a picture I took on Friday. So it's real new and it's real relevant. So you have to have space for the whole group instruction. And if you look here at what's at this classroom, you'll see that this is the workshop model. The students start out, these desks, the top is a whiteboard. And the students are allowed to choose what they sit on. So they can choose stools, they can choose chairs. And in the next video or in the next media or two, you'll see some of the other options. Rarely do they turn on the overhead lights. Usually they have this kind of lower level ambient light that provides enough for the students to be able to work effectively, but not so much that that it's causing other challenges. So in this workshop model, you have a heterogeneous pairing. So you're not pairing students of same ability level all the time. In reading, we tend to do more homogeneous, but in math or social studies, sciences, we use heterogeneous groups so that you have a mixed ability. And it's planned that way for a reason, because first of all, if you have somebody who's grasped the content and then other kids who are not quite there, you typically have a leader and you're developing more leadership skills. But it also allows you to break into smaller groups where everybody gets what they need. Instead of you sitting at your desk and having a line of 20 kids because they don't get it and they want to talk to you, you have authentic learning going on in groups. And I'll continue on that and see if it becomes a little clearer. So you have learning centers. And this is a picture, again, I snapped on Friday. So these students are working together with the goal that all succeed. Now, one of the ladies in this group is almost 3 grade levels behind. She didn't come to school for 2 years. She came and had a lot of absences the next year, but she's able to work with the other 2 students in her group in a location that works for her and meet those grade level standards because she has other students that will help her where she's struggling. So one of the benefits of the seating is you're not reducing the content. That's the biggest complaint teachers have is in differentiation. Well, you want me to dumb down my content? No, you don't. You keep the same rigor, but if she has 2 friends here that can help her with that content and help her with her any errors that she's making during that independent time. Then students can choose flexible seating options. Again, if you can look, this is 2 snapshots from Friday at the school in which I work. And so on the right, you see some students are sitting in chairs. Some students are sitting on wobble stools. There's a couple in the back that are standing during the instruction. And this is during that whole group instruction before they've been released to work independently. But even when they're released to work independently, many of the students in this classroom choose to remain at their desk area They just like a different chair to sit in, a different type of chair that works better for them. And on the left, you can see chair choices available in that first photograph we saw with the whiteboard table, where the students could choose stools. They can also choose rocker gliders. They can choose the material that's softer. It just gives them a variety of choices so that they can it kind of lets them keep moving and keep that oxygen flow going through long lessons. So in seating, one of the things we worry about first, this is where all teachers go first. This is where I went first. I'm trying to provide them this seating option that allows them to learn their best, but it doesn't have to be what they find the most fun. So it doesn't mean, you get that kid that you hand them that swivel chair and all of a sudden it is a ride at Disneyland. It's going round and round. That's not being effective for them. So you want to make sure that the seating option you give them, it's not necessarily what is the most fun, but what works best for them. And you help them to find those choices and make those choices. And so my very first entry into this, I had a little guy who was doing 360s in the swivel chair he had chosen. And my management strategy is, okay, you're not being successful here. You may return to your desk, and you can absolutely train them quickly and efficiently when they can't work in that environment the first time to return to their area. And if they only miss out once or twice, and they quickly get on board with finding seating that's helping them learn. The other piece is that your kids who are functioning at grade level or slightly above grade level are so engaged and so animated in this environment that it is contagious. So your students who maybe have struggled in the past or don't engage as readily, all of a sudden they want to be part of it. That's the energy, that's the enthusiasm. So I'll move a little faster. So here are some more workspaces that are within our school environment. Sometimes it's just a place to sit and read. This is in my classroom. I took desks that are from 1950. I painted them. I put a blackboard top on the left. On the right, I put a whiteboard top on a table, and I have stools. And so the kids can use that as an environment to work. And we have one teacher that has an area that's a touchscreen. The kids can get on and do their assignments on the touchscreen board. So after students have practiced their new learning skill, then we call them back to reflect. And what we know is that that's a best practice, that having them summarize or encapsulate their learning is essential. And so we want students to share some exemplars, but this is the time to walk them through if they were practicing errors that we noticed. And the brain research really supports this method of teaching. So again, you have your mini lesson, your practice, your sharing and reflecting. And then what happens is that it begins again. If you're secondary, your next class moves in. If you're elementary, you're going on to your next subject. And the energy level of the kids does not decline. It just stays constant. The parents do say the kids go home at the end of the day and they're really tired. But during the school day, they are focused, they're engaged, they're animated. So let's just chat real quick. What seating options are available to students in your classroom, in your school? You want to just go ahead and type in the chat real quick your responses. Are you typical desk seating? Do you do small groups? Now I see some small groups, desk seats, traditional desk seating, small groups. Is this public school? Yeah, small groups. Small groups. Nice. Yes, weekly rotation, small groups. Horse shape. Yeah. Desk seating, groups containing 5 or 6. Nice. Small groups, pair work, small groups. Yeah. So that small group instruction is is crucial in the flexible seating arrangements. There's nice. Yeah, so you guys all have a little bit of experience in this. U-shaped desks, separate grouping. Impossible to apply even in some private schools. It's possible. There are times that culture is going to play into this, I would imagine. Groups, teacher-led, literature circle, carpets. Okay. Well, sometimes when you start this, you have to change and adapt. So this is a little quote. I said, I have a plan, but my room has to change it up to make it work with each student. Because yes, we often, our classes are, our upper grades have around 30 students per classroom. We have 25, 24 in the primary classrooms. So we have a lot of students in the classroom. I see that's a comment that we're seeing is the amount of students, but sometimes just changing your grouping into groups and moving the seating is helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and move on and give you time to ask questions. And whoopsie. Let's try this. My little box is stuck. There we go. Somebody has a hand view, so hand up. Okay, Mr. Poe, if you can make my thing go away, I'm on the point of questions, so. Okay, so questions.
Yeah, Farouz is on. Farouz is now, he's ready to ask his question. He had his hand raised, so.
I'm ready.
Dr. Ray, if we're ready to take a few questions, are you ready?
Sure, we have about 5 minutes. We can
Okay.
do questions.
All right, Farouz, it's all yours from China, 2 o'clock in the morning, now 3 o'clock.
Yes, it's actually 3 o'clock now. Okay, Al, thank you very much, Dr. Dena Scott. My question is very practical and relevant to the context where I'm based in China. So imagine you are given a class where the seating arrangement is pretty much fixed, where there is very little room to change anything. And the curriculum is also fixed, that you don't have enough freedom or space to bring about your own stuff. And yeah, the students might be taught in a very lecture style class, in a teacher-centered class. So given all those, limitations and challenges, could you please tell us 3 things you would still like to bring about into that class?
I think number 1 would be an elbow partner. And I believe Dr. Francombe probably talked about that in his previous communication, but an elbow partner, or I saw some of the group or some of the text come up and say, think, pair, share. The very first thing I would do is give them one person that they can turn and talk to. So even if they're in linear desks, and that's very much the norm in the culture, you give them one partner that they can then turn and talk to. Even if sometimes you don't even have to change the seating arrangement for that part, just think, pair, share. The second thing I would say is that try just one time during the day, not for every activity, but one time during the day. Let's say you're teaching, do you teach mathematics to this group? Okay, so you're teaching mathematics, and let a group of students turn their desks so that the desktops are facing where they form a group, and give them, say, 5 problems to solve together. And let them talk through it for this short period of time. You stop it, then you bring it back. The third thing that I would try is that if you have students, if you have a seating environment that's static, there are toppers that you can get for your seats that just allow a little bit of movement and blood to the brain. I don't know if that's going to be culturally appropriate in China. Sorry about that, but I would still say some type of seat top, or even if it's a cushion, to change that hard seating posture.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Tony Crawford, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, it seems like we have a rock star with us when we have Tony Crawford with us from Oregon, now in Cairo. He's done some great presentations, and Mr. Crawford, we're going to have you back. I mean, yeah, we need to schedule you in a time to do a great workshop
someday. But how do you follow an act like tonight?
Wow,
Dr.
yeah.
Dena, thank you for a fine presentation. But, you know, I do just want to observe that the lion's share of what you addressed was arrangement in the classroom. Could you comment, please, about non-traditional settings, you know, taking your students out to the yard, what kind of group arrangements you could engage, you know, in that setting, or in a field trip or service learning environment, just something other than the traditional classroom.
Absolutely, and that'd probably be a whole nother hour conversation, but that as well. We actually have tables out on our playground area. Our school sits on about 5 acres, and we have tables so you can actually take the kids outdoors and for some of the activities, and there's tables outside, or you can sit up against the building, or and then of course field trips and that sort of thing. But there's plenty of space. And in the when I taught at the university, that was one of the students' favorite things to do, Mr. Poe, is give them a group, send them off for an hour to work together, and then come back for their presentation. And they would leave the classroom. Some would go to the commons and have coffee. Some would go sit out on the lawn. And so just being able to sometimes, with especially older students at the university level, leave the classroom, it's just crucial.
Well, Dr. Ray, I think we should conclude, and then while people are filling out the post-workshop survey, I think we can have them ask a few other questions. So that survey will be posted as soon as Dr. Ray is done with his famous Dr. Ray's words of wisdom.
This is really fun because this week I learned a lesson from my next door neighbor that I want to share with you. He's a mechanic. He doesn't have a college degree. He's a very, very, very good person, and quite good in his area. Well, I was outside of my garage where I park my car, and outside of our garage, we have a little box where you can press the code in to open the garage door in case you forgot your garage door opener. And I was working on it and working on it and working on it. And for the last 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, it wouldn't work. And so I was sure that somebody had come and played a practical joke on me and had changed my code. And I didn't know what the code was. I didn't know how to open the garage door in case I was locked out. So I said to my neighbor, I said, do you know anything about these garage door openers, these machines where you press your code in? I said, I think somebody has come and messed with mine so that my code doesn't work. He looked at it and he said, have you checked the battery? I said, oh, the battery. I hadn't thought about that. So he was very nice, and he went into his house. He got a new battery for me. He walked in, he walked next door, put the battery in my garage door opener, and voila, it opened. And I said to him, you know, I really do not feel comfortable around mechanical things. I don't think I'm very good at anything mechanical. And he said, now here's a guy who doesn't have a college degree. He doesn't have any experience teaching. He said, but you have to understand, everybody is good at something. And you have to find out what that something was. And then all of a sudden I thought, this is going to be my words of wisdom for today. And it's this: help every student believe that he or she is gifted at something. Once each student feels this success at something, that student will understand what success feels like and can then transfer that success to other areas of learning. And that was really an important lesson, which, yes, I knew it already, but it really hit home this week because he said to me, "You're gifted at things that I would never be able to do." And I said, "Yeah, you're probably right." And so I challenge each of us in our classrooms with every student to feel what that something is. And once that student feels success in that something, he or she can transfer that success into other things and thus enlarge learning. So that's my words for today, Dr. Jake.
Dr. Ray, I really like that because, you know, we've often been told that you can learn something from everyone. And so I think that's powerful. We just posted the post-workshop survey in the chat and then also on the Facebook chat for those that are on Facebook. And Dr. Ray, did you notice how many people we have here today?
I know we have
My goodness,
over 300 on this plus whatever we have on Facebook. So
yeah, it's
we
great
probably
to
have
see everyone.
We probably have 600 to 700 people today.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the 800 essays. By the way, you teachers, I've just read a few of the essays while the judges are judging them. You teachers must be doing a wonderful job at teaching writing, because I have seen some outstanding essays and I'm thinking, wow, you're really doing a good job at teaching students the ability to write and put their thoughts on paper. So I congratulate you, those of you who have students who entered the contest. Our judges are still trying to finish up their work. We hope to get the results out very soon, but because of the massive number and now the massive number today, we so appreciate your participation.
It looks like we have one question from Hula Yunus. Hula, you're unmuted if we want to try to stump us.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for enlightening us about differentiation. So far as the learning environment is concerned. My question is, I always felt comfortable so far as the differentiation in content and assessment and environment is concerned. For me, differentiation in the learning process always remained quite a challenging one, though I've been using Jigsaw for that, but I would definitely love to know more about that if you can spare some time about it. Yeah.
And before we answer, Hula, could you tell us what country you're in and which school you're with?
Yes, I'm in Saudi Arabia, and I'm right now affiliated with Al Bassam International School. It's actually an MYP IB school, actually. I'm working as an MYP English language and literature teacher. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you. I have included at the end of the presentation, I have included my email address, and I'd be happy to share with you the PowerPoint or to have further dialogue. That would be lovely.
Well, and I think potentially the process piece may well be a good topic for another session, as we take a look and focus specifically on processes and how to use those in the classroom.
Yeah, that's a big question. This would be a good topic at some point. Any other questions? Some people asked for the link again. It's posted back in there. There was someone who said that it wasn't working. It seems like we've already received several people who filled it out. So we'll go back into that link, try it again, and it should work just fine. All right, we got Farouz back with a question. Go ahead, Farouz. Although you're probably tired. I mean, 3 o'clock in the morning. This is great.
No, I'm full of beans. So, yes. After an hour-long session, I became super energetic. Nice. So, Dr. Dena Scott, my question is very simple, actually, but really thought-provoking. differentiation is necessary, but what if you have more than 40 students in class? How is that going to work?
Well, then
that's exactly what is happening in China.
Yeah. Well, then it is more necessary because there is no way one teacher can meet the needs of 40 children. You will hit just a swath of students. According to the bell-shaped curve, 10 aren't going to get it, 10 are going to be bored, and 20 will be with you. So the differentiation is actually your best strategy when you have large class sizes. And that's what we found in our school district is we have large class sizes for American schools. And the differentiation is what allows us to reach each child and to give everybody what they need. So it's a little bit of work getting started, but it has big benefits, big payoff.
And Farouz, could I add also?
Yes, please.
Don't forget that students can help each other. That's how you can differentiate also, is when you have students helping each other. And that doesn't have to be your brightest students working with your slower students necessarily. It could be talking to each other and saying, so that can help a class of 40 students if students have the ability to work with each other.
I see.
All right, we have Miss Marwa, who is on her iPhone. Miss Marwa, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. But you have to tell us where you're from and which school you're from.
Okay, I'm Egyptian and I'm working right now in Saudi Arabia. I am the MYP coordinator at Al Bassam International School. My question is, how the IB, for example, it is a kind of, it represents the differentiation strategies as the deep ocean. And the teachers can manage inside the classroom the styles and techniques, but deeply, how can we fulfill the deep requirements of differentiation within our classrooms? Because as we all know, differentiation can go beyond groups, teaching techniques, and managing students' behaviors as well. How can we manage this as teachers? How to deepen our understanding in applying differentiation in its right frame?
Well, I still think that Dr. Francombe is onto something. I think an additional course or additional session in here that would focus on one of those other 3 strands would be really helpful, because there's so many ways to address that. And again, my email's on there, and I am happy to dialogue with you. But I think if you take a look at content, or you take a look at the process, any one of those would provide a nice benefit stream for what you're addressing.
Well, and I think we have to be very careful also that we don't say the task is too big, we can't do anything. We each can do something. We each can do something, and start with something. Even though you don't think it's going to solve the whole problem, start with something. Rahima, Mustafa, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yep, there you go. Now you should be able to do that. And then we have a question on Facebook too.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am teacher Rahima, working in Tehran, but international from Saudi Arabia.
Wonderful.
So,
welcome.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, Alhamdulillah, I have been working on differentiation strategies. Like I have attended few workshops, and I'm applying many methods, differentiated methods and strategies in my classroom. The first main problem I face with my students is the chaotic experience, the excellent students as well as the low average students. When I apply the techniques, the excellent students they don't allow me. You got my point? I think you very well understand, because the excellent students are also in the same classroom. So whenever I try to help my students, those who are at low understanding level, little bit slow learners, those who can't take my language, there are many, as you know, Saudi Arabia, we face with many students who come from Arabic schools, then they join the English schools. So they have some language problem. So those times we apply the differentiation method. That the practical problem is the excellent students for me. They really, they come in the way. They say, no, these lessons are very easy. We want that lessons, okay? And the mini lessons, the bite-sized lessons we make. Why, teacher, you're making easy lessons for them? Our lessons are very big. So when we do the differentiation strategy, really, really, I face this problem. Number one. Number two, the biggest problem I face is from the parents. When the parents come to know that I have applied like a small worksheets or a small mini lesson, the parents ask me, teacher, why do you make these lessons for our children only? My child is very good. He can understand very well. We want the same lesson. No, 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 don't make small lessons for us. I need my child to learn more. The parents are not understanding the reality. Uh, because I use my best to make them understand that no, your student is your daughter, your son is having a low understanding level in this subject, especially with the language, the English grammar. You know, when I try to teach them the basic grammar rules, I make small bite lessons for the slow learners, but mostly I'm questioned by the parents. Now the issue comes with the school. The school calls me, Rahima, teacher Rahima, why are you making these lessons? So it's really, really a big task for a teacher, the
Yeah, and
differentiation strategy.
let me answer that, Rahima, because last month, Dr. Ray and I talked about differentiation, and when we talk about differentiation, we can't just say that it's for students who struggle. It's meeting each student at their level. So if you have students who excel, we need to work with them, and we need to help them and support them, and not give them the easy stuff. We need to make sure that they're being consistently pushed, and that they have stuff that's going to meet their needs. So good question, good thoughts. And we have a question from Facebook that I told you we were going to get to. Let's see, here it is. A question from Rukhsar. His question is, my question is how to divide your class time within your lecture, class work, and activities. So Ms. Dena, what do you think? How can you find that balance with lecture, activities, and differentiation?
What I have done mostly to right now, most of us have pacing guides. So your district's going to tell you you're going to teach this week at this time, and so your curriculum and your time is set. But in that workshop model, you're still using your same materials. So that's why I was saying it's kind of a nice intro into that. It's a nice way to step into that because you're still using your district approved or adopted curriculum, but you teach to the whole group, then you provide independent practice that has reteaching activities for the kids who are struggling a little. And for the previous question, you have an enrichment strand, so you can put together a group of, I have 3 students. One is from Taiwan, one is native English, and the other is Spanish speaking, and they're in a enrichment math group where I hand them the independent work that they're working on has that enrichment piece, so it's a little more challenging. And they love it. My enrichment students have probably been the ones that have been the happiest with the change. So
that's great. That's great. Well, Dr. Ray, if you're okay, we can take one more question and then wrap it up.
Yeah, let's start. We have grade 1 teacher.
Yeah, so you should be able to unmute yourself from Dunes.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm from Dunes International School, Saudi Arabia, Al Jubail. I have a question. I'm a coordinator for grade 1, and there are 7 sections that comes under me. And every year we get new teachers.
Yeah.
Okay, so sometimes what happens is that the teachers are unaware about the differentiation, how to identify the children, how to differentiate them. So is there a particular guideline or an information where we can, they can easily understand about this?
I want to jump in first of all and say that that's one of the issues that as we've traveled around the world, we find this issue of new teachers every year. One idea is that at your first staff meeting, you might teach a lesson to your teachers and differentiate them, show how you differentiate within this. Give them an example, just the teachers. And and that might be one example of helping them understanding differentiation.
All right, so thank you.
That's just one idea. There are probably many more. Probably Dena has many more than I do, but that's just one idea that came to me.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you, everyone. And we'll look forward to seeing everyone on December 16th. And in the meantime, if you have questions about our services that we provide, please do not hesitate to reach out and talk to us, and we'd be happy to help out in any way. So everyone have a great rest of your weekend, and we will see you in a few weeks.
And I challenge every one of you, when you go to your classroom the next day, try to identify with each student where his gift is, where his or her gift is. Try to figure in your mind, where is the gift for this student, for this student, for this student. You'll find that you'll reap great rewards.
Thank you, everyone. And Dr.